Thank you for attending the webinar today, the Beyond the Wall from Sound Law Instruction to Decodables. And I hope you are able to join us for the next webinar on April 8th. What is all the schwa about? If you register by February 29th, then you would have received a mailer with some resources to use along with the webinars. If you did not, then please reach out to your local Hand to Mind sales rep and they will send you um, all the goodies and you can have them for the next webinar. You definitely don't have to have them, but if you do, then as I'm using them in this presentation, then you definitely can follow along and make this interactive. So again, welcome. My name is Keegan Wilson. I'm a National Literacy Director for Hand to Mind. Tell you a little bit about myself, and also my email address is on here. So if you do need to have the mailer mailed to you and you do not know who your local sales representative is, please reach out to me. My email address is right here, Keegan K. Wilson at handtomind.com. And also reach out to me for any resources or any questions you may have from this presentation. So a little bit about me, my background in education. My most recent role in the school system, I was a dyslexic interventionist for a district, and through that job is how I found Hand to Mind. And through some of the products I'm going to show you today, our Sound Law products, is how my relationship with Hand to Mind began. And I'm still very involved in the dyslexic community. I still tutor children, and most of them are dyslexic learners. I'm a dyslexia advocate. I just finished the advocacy program through the Dyslexic Training Institute in San Diego. So, like I said, still very involved in that space, and I will share some stories throughout, and you will hear my experiences and some of even from this week with students. So this quote is one that I always like to share because I feel like that a lot of times teachers are looking for ways to remediate problems that really are remediated by going back to the skill prior. And a lot of the skills that are needed to remediate problems are skills that we're not teaching in our curricula. And if you are using a curricula or you don't have a curricula, then you may have to supplement those areas. And that is what Hand to Mind is here for, to supplement any areas in literacy that you and your students need instruction for that area. So this is a very just aha type quote. So when there's a breakdown, we need to go back. When there's poor reading comprehension, we need to go back to fluency. When there's poor fluency, we need to go back to word recognition. When there's poor word recognition, we need to go back to phonics and decoding. And when there's poor phonics and decoding, we need to go back to phonemic awareness. So that is what brings us to the pillars of literacy. And there are 5 pillars of literacy. These are from the National Reading Panel in 2000. This is when this came out. Definitely was in college around this time and never heard about the pillars of literacy in any of my reading classes or any of the classes. My undergrad was in special education. I don't remember ever hearing about it. I don't remember ever hearing about phonemic awareness until I started teaching. So I want to really focus on that first pillar, phonemic awareness. And as you see, phonological awareness is the umbrella where phonemic awareness falls underneath. And so what is phonemic awareness? Because like I said, a lot of curricula, this is something they do not touch on. So I feel like this definition is so valuable. I do want to read this. So, well, I want to read under the umbrella of phonological awareness. What is phonological awareness? Not phonemic awareness yet. So phonological awareness is the ability to notice, reflect on, and play with sounds of spoken words. Phonological awareness activities focus on listening to and saying sounds, so they are considered activities that can be done with your eyes shut. So that's very important to think about, because when your eyes are shut, you can't see letters. And in this part, in the phonological awareness part, your students should not be seeing letters. You should just be checking to see if they can manipulate the sounds. I was doing an assessment this week, a pre-assessment, getting some baseline data for one of our programs, and I was in a classroom. And in the assessment, in the pre-assessment, there's a phonological awareness component actually in our guided phonics and beyond that I'm going to show you. And in that phonological awareness component, words and sentences was one of the skills. So you would say a sentence, I see a cat, and then the student would tell you how many words. They would repeat the sentence and then that would tell you if they could hear that there were 3 words. Again, rhyme and alliteration. So when you say 2 words, do they rhyme? And then when you say a word, how many syllables do they hear? Again, you haven't taught the graphemes, you haven't moved to the phonics yet, but you're just talking about hearing, manipulating. Onset and rhyme is a big one at the phonological awareness level. So when you're teaching, when you say the word bat, can they say at the onset and the rhyme? When we move into the phonics and even into the phonemic awareness with onset and rhyme, we need to teach that word bat is 3 sounds. But for the students that struggle to hear those 3 sounds, then we can introduce onset and rhyme to them. So we're starting with initial sound, and then we have that rhyme. So again, looking at phonological awareness as this umbrella, and underneath, there's so many skills. So if you have already received the materials, you would have received a sampler from our phonemic awareness and phonics toolkit. So this is where I'm going to start today, and we're going to look at phonemic awareness in this toolkit. So you'll notice that in phonological awareness in this toolkit, it's under the umbrella, right? So we've got the umbrella, phonological awareness, and phonemic is underneath it, and we will move into phonemic. So phonological awareness, our students can do this with their eyes closed. So think about these sections that I've pulled from lessons from the phonemic awareness and phonics toolkit. So they're scripted, and you'll see that, the gradual release. So the skill in this first section on the left, rhyming word identification. So the teacher says, sat and hat. Do these words rhyme? So thumbs up or thumbs down. They have the same middle and ending sound. They rhyme. How about hat and red? So we hope that your students for sat and hat, but for hat and red, they do not have the same middle and ending sound. They do not rhyme. So then together, say sat, hat, and show a thumbs up, right? So we're doing that together. Say hat, red. Say dog and frog. As a group, have students show a thumbs up or down for these words. Now, dialect and accent will depend sometimes if your students hear the same thing and if you say it in the same way they do, and that's definitely a conversation, because that is definitely important in language to recognize the dialect and the accent of your students, their home language. And then, so as you see, you're using, you got the kinesthetic as far as the movement with their thumbs. And then over here, even moving to blending and segmenting compound words. Still at the phonological awareness level. We haven't introduced any phonics yet. They haven't seen a word. They could do this with their eyes closed, right? So a compound word is a word made up of 2 smaller words. I can blend back and pack together to make a word. So then you can put your palms together. So you have backpack. So backpack, right? We can also break backpack apart into 2 smaller words. So you have backpack. Okay, you can do the same thing with fish pond. So you could say fish pond, and then you could put them together, fish pond, right? So you've got the tactile, you've got your feeling it, they're moving, the kinesthetic and the tactile with this, because they're feeling their hands, they're moving their hands. You've got the auditory too, because they're saying it out loud. But again, all that can be done with their eyes shut. So as you see, you've got the compound words. Now at this phonological awareness level, we're not expecting our students to be able to sound those out or spell those, but that is not the skill that we're assessing. We're assessing the phonological awareness. So again, hearing the sounds. And when I say that, it's not checking the hearing like a nurse would do. You're checking to see if they can discriminate the sounds. So at the syllable level, here's some more activities that you can do. And these come from the University of Florida Literacy Institute, their website. They have a lot of great activities on their website for phonological awareness. So you see at the syllable level, so just clapping, They can have, a string of beads, and they can, move the beads for each syllable. So like backpack, right? Backpack. So then there's all different, activities connecting it to books. Then at the onset and rhyme level, so tossing a beanbag, obviously that is going to be, very fun for the kids. Also, you've got the kinesthetic and the tactile, the touch, the movement. You've got the auditory during all that because they're saying the words, and you've got the visual because you're using something, right? So you've got all four of the modalities. And you see there's a lot of different things you can do with singing, and even you've got the sponge. So with wet sponges cut into alphabet shapes, children make a list of words. Now this is moving into the graphemes with that because you're making a list of words, but you could just orally make the list of words, right? Keep it at the phonological awareness level, which is what they're doing here. Then you have the word level activity. So you have them hop, that you say, I see a dog. So then they would hop, I see a dog. So they would hop each time they hear a word. So again, getting those modalities into your instruction, which we know helps the students orthographically map everything that we're doing. They help their learning stick. So again, just some activities beyond, hand to mind. This is University of Florida Literacy Institute, but they're free activities and great resources for you to plug in as needed in your classroom. So phonemic awareness, now we're hitting the first pillar. Phonological awareness is the umbrella. Phonemic awareness is under that umbrella. So what is phonemic awareness? It's very important that I read this definition because it is one that is misunderstood, and it is definitely one that is left out. So phonemic awareness, or the ability to notice and manipulate individual sounds in spoken language, is an essential building block for later decoding skills. And that is from the University of Florida Literacy Institute as well. So if we do not include this in our instruction, we are going to see this later on. And in the data that I see all across the country, this is where our students are the weakest. They are the weakest here because, we, with COVID and with students not seeing mouth positions, not seeing sounds being formed, they miss this pillar. Especially like my own son, he's in 4th grade. So he was in kindergarten the year that everything shut down. So he reads differently than my other sons in 2nd grade because my 2nd grader has had a full school experience. He has learned at the phonemic awareness level, where my 4th grade son, I can tell he's memorized a lot more words. So he's not able to decode the words in the same way. When he comes to an unfamiliar word, he doesn't have the decoding skills that my younger child has. So there's layers to phonemic awareness. You have phoneme isolation, where you're isolating a specific phoneme, a specific sound in a word. You have blending, where you're blending all the sounds together. And then you have segmenting, where you are segmenting each sounds. Addition, where you're adding a sound. Deletion, where you're removing a sound. And substitution, where you're substituting a sound. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in our Guided Phonics and Beyond program. It's one of our new programs, and there's 6 units in it. So I'm going to show you from a lesson, but I'm also going to show you the step before I would begin this lesson. So as you see, I'm going to show you the lesson 3.2 on the left, and then on the right, we're going to look at another one too. And actually, the next lesson is where I'm going to show you a step before. So I'm just going to point out this phonemic awareness in our Guided Phonics and Beyond. So as you see the skill-based phonemic awareness warm-up, it's very important that you are doing this before you begin your lessons, where you're just doing an auditory drill, right? There's not anything involved with this besides if you want to use the fluency phone to build in the modalities of the auditory. So if you look at this gradual release in lesson 3.2 for the phonemic awareness warm-up that I do in this part, listen as I say a set of sounds and then repeat them. So s, 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 s. Okay. Now we do, so the students join you in this. Repeat the sounds after me. Which sound repeats? And they will tell you. Okay, so the student does. Listen. Ah, ah, ah. Say the sound that repeats into your phoneme phones. You can call them phoneme phones, fluency phones, whisper phones. But the purpose is for the students to hear themselves, right? So they are going to repeat the sound ah, right? So then they're going to repeat in their fluency phones t, 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 mm, mm, s, 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 s. So why are we doing that phonemic awareness warm up in that lesson? Because in that lesson, we're going to use those sounds, right? And we're making sure that our students know how to produce those sounds at the phonemic awareness level. Let's look over in lesson 4.1. Now, this is a different unit. If you notice the objective in 3.2, we were identifying and building words with the p sound, right? We're the CVC level. Objective for 4.1, which is out of the digraphs and beginning blends, the objective is identify and build words with the sound, right? The digraph. So a big jump from the CVC words. So let's look at the phonemic awareness level at that with this lesson. So the word is thud. Listen as I count the sounds in thud. D, right? Thud. So d. So the word is fish. Repeat the word back to me. So they would say fish. How many sounds? Sh. What letters make those sounds? And they would tell you F-I-S-H. So then you do. I will say the word. You will repeat the word back to me. Count and say the sounds and say the letters that make the sounds. The word is thick. Repeat the word back to me. Thick. How many sounds do you hear? Ick, right? What letters make those sounds? T-H-I-C-K. So then you would do it with thin and dash. Again, they have their words with digraphs. So again, your students can do all that with their eyes closed, right? They were finger tapping, they still could have their eyes closed, but everything they needed was either their hands or just an addition to bring in the auditory with the fluency phone, the phoneme phone. So the other sample that you would have received if you've already received the materials is the Phonemic Awareness and Phonics Toolkit. So in that sampler, you'll have the wand and the chips and the Okonon box. So we will be using that if you do want to get that out. So I do want to, I want you to look at this. So this is in the Phonemic Awareness section in these lessons. So I want you to look at the common theme on the left side. So we've got encode and decode sh words, right? So that digraph. So I'm going to show you before I would teach this part of the lesson, I would actually include the manner of articulation. So I would make sure that my students know that sound. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to show you with some resources. And this was one that you also received if you received the materials. You would have received a 3D sound and phonics card. So this is the manner of articulation tool, and I'm going to show you this. So for teachers that are wanting to implement sound walls, a lot of teachers are just putting the sound wall up and they don't have a tool for teaching the sound. So these cards are 3D sound and phonics cards. They help with that. But I want you to look at these because if you have them, you're definitely going to want to slant these cards so you can see. There's a red and green dot in the right-hand corner, and you'll see the mouth position change. So the green dot is your mouth position at the beginning of the sound, and the red is the mouth position when you complete the sound. So as you see, you have the mouth position. You also have a key word for that digraph. So sh, so sharp. But on the back is the manner of articulation. This is where I would begin. My students we would practice the manner of articulation before we moved into this lesson. So I would make sure that my students had a mirror so they could, this is the one that we have our 3D sound and our Mirror My Sounds. And so in this would be my next step after teaching the manner of articulation, that they would have the mirror as I am reading this. This is how to produce the sound, which is the manner of articulation. So you can see this. I'm going to read it. The sh in shark is an unvoiced digraph, and it can be held. So as long as you have breath, you can make this sound. So shh. Stick out your lips slightly, put your teeth close together, and relax your tongue. The front part of your tongue should touch your side teeth and gums. Let the air come out of your mouth in a steady stream. So let's try that. Shh. So then there's words provided for you to use where that sound is the initial position and the final position. But also this mirror provides an opportunity for your students to see that word in the initial position and the final position. So again, they don't see the letters. They haven't moved into phonics, but shark and brush. All they're focusing on is that sound. So this is a really good place to start. But that, I just wanted to point that out because that would be the first place for them to go before this lesson, before I would begin teaching this lesson. I would have done that before. So I want to look at this. You have the encoding and decoding words with that digraph, right? So if you look at the lesson plan, we are not just jumping into the sounds, we're focusing on that digraph. So we can use what we know about the sh to sound out longer words. Sound out the word shell. So sh, l, sh, l. Where do you hear the sh sound? Okay, so this is where, and I'm going to go off screen to show you on my DocuCam. So we are talking about the placement of that digraph. So you have made sure they were able to tell you that that word shell had 3 sounds, but then you're asking them, where do you hear that sh? So they would show you in the middle, I mean, in the beginning, right? So if you were talking about the word brush, then that would be over here because you'd have sh, right? So that's at the end. So then so having them hear that sound in the beginning and the end. So then you would move into, and you're still in the phonemic awareness here. So when you're talking about how many sounds do you hear with brush? So brush has a blend that's a blend. And some curricula teach those together, but those are 2 separate sounds. So how many sounds do you hear in that word? So having your students at the phonemic awareness level map those sounds. So, sh, right? So then this is where we go into the levels of phonemic awareness. So we're going to segment. So, right? Picking up all those sounds. We also, once we know our students can segment, we can blend those sounds. So brush, right? We can put them all together. So there's many different things that we can do at the manipulative level. You can also have students push up the sound. So right? So all at the phonemic awareness level. We have not brought in any of the graphemes at that point. And so as we're talking about phonemic awareness, I also want to show you with this, our Science of Reading Toolkit, or Little Minds at Work Science of Reading Toolkit. So with this, we're showing them a picture. So this is a picture of a map. So we still are not showing them any letters. So I would give them many opportunities at the manipulative level to map this word. Map, the word map. So map, how many sounds do they hear? Right? So we know that they hear 3 sounds. They can press these. These are called pressums. So right? They can also use these poppets to pop the sounds. So right? You can also have them use the magnetic chips. So the initial sound's green. So you can have them segment. You can have them blend in the same way, right? So giving them many opportunities at that phonological awareness level. Again, we have not introduced to them any graphemes at this point, but we have given them plenty of opportunities to map the words at the phonemic awareness level and manipulate those sounds. So also you see this with encode and decode the initial and final sound. So not just focusing on it as the initial sound, but giving them opportunities with that same, you got the, the same digraph with the initial placement, like in thud and this, and then in the final placement with bath and path. So we move on to the next pillar. So what is phonics? And this is definitely a space that we're more comfortable in. Our curricula, this is where a lot of the curricula starts instead of addressing the first pillar, the phonological awareness pillar. So this, I feel like as educators, we, in college, this is where, or for me, I can speak for myself, the classes that I was in my undergraduate and in my master's program, this is where we focused. It was not until I had Orton Gillingham training, went through the Letters Academy, that I learned about the pillars before this. So what is phonics? Phonics is the study of the systematic relationship between the sounds we hear in words and the letters that spell them. Or to say it more technically, the systematic relationships between phonemes and graphemes. So between the sounds and the letters. There's many examples of phonics. It's not just the letters, right? It's all the syllabication and all of the different spelling patterns. So I do want to show you this in our Guided Phonics and Beyond program, the way that we address phonics here. So we talked about the phonemic awareness section. So then when we move into phonics, you'll notice that we are not just showing the word, right? We are explicitly teaching the words. So you'll notice that in this program, there's word cards and word sentences. So you are explicitly teaching those words in the word cards and then moving to the sentence. If you notice that the sound here was that sound, and you notice in the sentence, tap has that sound, and then also the words that you were teaching, Pat and Pam, have those initial. So you have initial sounds and you have the final sound. Also want to show, in this lesson, lesson 4.1, the words in here, and we're gonna map these words, the word cards. So if you notice that you are going to explicitly teach, make sure you're going to be going back to that sound. So in this program, you do get the sound cards. If you notice, you have the mouth position, the keyword for that is thumb, right? And so you're going back over that. You're not just diving into the phonics. You are also going back, and like we said in that initial quote, going back, right? We're going back to the phonemic awareness. We're in phonics, but we're going back to the phonemic awareness. So then you're going to have your students use a mirror, and you can see they're going back over that sound before they move into words. So I'm going to look at the words bath in this as I show you how to map. So this is an Elkonin board that comes with this kit. So we're going to be mapping the words. So these are the word cards that you get. So bath, path, and math. And I'm just going to focus on bath here. So before I even say the word to my student, show the word to my student, I am going to have them map the word. So I'm going to provide them with these foam circles, and I'm going to say the word bath. How many sounds do you hear? I'm going to turn it over on this side. So the word bath, right? I'm going to have them move the sound. So they can tap it, right? So I am not doing away with the phonemic awareness in this. I am going to show them the correspondence as that definition of phonics said. So once I know that they hear the sounds, they can manipulate them, they hear it, they manipulated them, then they can write the graphemes that are associated with those sounds. So we have the phonemic awareness and we have the phonics, but they're not isolated, right? They are together, those skills are together, and it's very important that we show those skills together with our students and they do not see that as a separate skill. Because that a lot of times that is what happens, is that we're teaching all of that in isolation, and our students never see that together. So it's very important to combine those skills. So let's look at this. Let's look at the phonics in Phonemic Awareness and Phonics Toolkit. So as you see, just as they have in this lesson right here, the Phonemic Awareness and Phonics section is that they are encoding open syllables, right? So with this, moving into the syllables, you're just making sure your students hear that there are 2 syllables in this word, and how do they designate each syllable with the open syllable, right? Do is open, and then nut is closed. So when do, that's going to be a long vowel, and nut is going to be a short vowel. So that instruction this is, where that instruction would take place. Obviously, I'm just showing you one section, but your students would have learned about closed and open syllables. They would have at least had an introduction to that here. So when you're saying the word, so when you're saying the words with syllables, you are making sure that your students, for that word donut, that they hear 2 syllables. So donut, right? Same way with the ones. They can pick it up, they can segment donut, and then you can have them blend at the syllable level, donut. So segmenting and blending is not just for sounding out individual phonemes, it's also at the syllable level. And it's very important that we include that step in our instruction, and definitely one that is not always included. So let's look at the lesson beside the phonics lesson. You see this is encoding open syllables, and with this lesson, they have taken the word tiger, and we are going to be using a Okonon box. I'm going to show you how, with the reading rods, how we can use Okonon boxes and reading rods together. So again, the focus of this lesson is open and closed syllables, right? So we can always go back to our to that phonemic awareness level, right? Before we move in, and it's something I always add in there. So tiger, you say the word tiger, so so they would have learned R controlled, obviously, to be able to do tiger. So just want to point that out. So right? So when that is at the phonemic awareness level, we are going to move into phonics, so we can bring in the reading rods. So right, show them that together. Then we can also move those down. We can have them right in here. So right? So that is together. That is one sound. That is R controlled. So that is a sound together. Again, that would have had to been explicitly taught, and it would have been before that lesson, that lesson was shown to your students. So again, that's, we have to make sure that we're explicitly teaching what we're asking our students to decode. So fluency, and this, we want our students to be fluent, and we are asked, and especially in my position, I'm asked a lot, like, what do you have for fluency? And this is where my go back quote comes in. You've got to go back, right? If your student is not fluent, if they cannot decode, then we need to go back. We need to look at what we're asking them to decode, because we may not have taught the material to them, or it may be where there's some gaps. So what is fluency? Fluency is the ability to read with speed, accuracy, and proper expression. So this is really important. And both of these quotes, I feel like, are just defining what it is. So reading fluency refers to efficient word recognition skills that permit a reader to construct the meaning of text. Fluency is manifested in accurate, rapid, expressive oral reading, and is applied during and makes possible silent reading comprehension. So if we want our students to be able to comprehend, they need to be fluent readers. If we want our students to be fluent readers, they need to be able to decode. So just think about all that goes into that. So when students have slow processing, and when they're struggling with fluency, this is where I start, and this is a progression. And when I'm tutoring students and, when parents are asking for ideas to take back to the school, or when they're wanting some activities to do at home, I often refer them, I make a notebook of these activities. I refer, I point them to going back to letter naming, going back to a skill that the student has mastered. And sometimes that is all they have mastered. They don't, and then if they've mastered sounds, then you could do sounds, but having them do one skill, right? Become fluent there and then move into words. And when I say this is sight word fluency, I don't mean they've learned these words by sight, that these should be words that they are automatic with. When they see them, they know them. We've still provided explicit instruction on these words. And then moving into high frequency phrases, right? So words that they would see a lot in their phrases. So then we can move into sentences and passages. So I'm going to show you that with Guided Phonics and Beyond. So each lesson in Guided Phonics and Beyond has either a decoding sheet, which you see on the right, and then a decodable passage. So the decoding sheet would have the words in isolation, and then the sentences, and then the decoding passage would have those all together. So we need to teach our students the words in isolation, and then build up to the sentence, and then build up to the passage. And some of our students are ready for the passage, but definitely when we see our students struggling with the passage, we can go back to the words that are decodable that we have explicitly taught them, and then move into sentences. So kind of the progression of that. So in the Phonemic Awareness and Phonics Toolkit, the fluency phones come in those as well. And so all of the passages that are in that program can be printed off our e-reader component. And you can use those for center activities or even for dictation. But also the students are going to become fluent because they are going to take one sentence and chunk it and read it and use their phoneme phones and become very comfortable with it. So part of fluency is giving our students exposure to material that they're comfortable with. We can't expect them to be fluent in material they've never seen. So again, this right here just shows you have this sentence and you are going to read it like you're talking. So you see how they've chunked it. And so then you're going to use your fluency phones and you're going to read it with the proper expression. So a lot in this toolkit, there's a lot of examples of different types of expressions. You have commas, you have different types of ending expressions, you have simple to complex sentences, but you also begin at the word level. So moving from the words to the sentences. But in the Phonemic Awareness and Phonics Toolkit, they're not decodable passages. So in Guided Phonics and Beyond, there are. So what is vocabulary? There's 3 different tiers of vocabulary. You have the tier 1 vocabulary, and that's used, in basic conversation, your student words that they're familiar with. And then the tier 2 are more like contextual words that they encounter in text and often need direct instruction with. And the tier 3 are very specific words, right? Domain specific, low frequency words. So tier 1 would be our high frequency words, and tier 3 would be our lower frequency words. So Florida Center for Reading Research is one that I have been relying on since I began my teaching career in 2005. It's still, it's amazing. It's research-based. There's activities on all pillars of literacy. So if you are using a curricula that, you're filling in gaps, it's a great place to go as well. But their definition of vocabulary is one that I think is just, points out or brings out all the key points. So vocabulary refers to all of the words of our language. One must know words to communicate effectively. Vocabulary is important to reading comprehension because readers cannot understand what they are reading without knowing what most of the words mean. Vocabulary development refers to stored information about the meanings and pronunciation of words necessary for communication. So we need to think about that. And in Guided Phonics and Beyond, this really focuses on, we've explicitly taught the words, even the irregular words. And then we have, so making those decodable, making those words decodable. And then we are going to ask our students to find that word in the passage. What is that word? So this decodable passage in lesson 4, fog on the path. Find the word path. What is it? What is another word for path? So obviously that's outside the text, right? That'll depend on their background knowledge. That is an opportunity to connect. Like if you have a path near your school, if you want to show a video on a path, a book on with a path in it, where might you find a path? Again, more inference and more conversational than just looking a word up in a definition, right? And building and connecting it to their background knowledge and to their experience. So in our vocabulary and phonics toolkit, we have manipulatives so that before we are teaching the word, that we are making sure that the students hear all the syllables. And as you see, you have the reading rods, you have the Conan boxes, you have the other manipulatives, the word cards, and this is for 3 through 5. But I'm going to show you specific parts of that. But this definition right here of vocabulary from letters in volume 1 was really powerful. So why is it so important that we emphasize vocabulary? Because learning multiple meanings of words speeds up word retrieval and word recognition and contributes to both vocabulary and development and reading fluency. So it all works together, right? We're not singling out these pillars, we're bringing them all together. So I want you to look like in this is the vocabulary and phonics toolkit. We are not just teaching vocabulary. We're not just teaching phonics. We're going back to phonemic awareness. So we're going back to phonemic awareness with these multisyllabic words, right? So in this toolkit, we are going to be looking at lessons on prefixes and lessons on suffixes. So I want you to look at this. So you get these Clearview boards, and you can put the Conan boards underneath them. So with the word, and this was a word from that lesson, the word submit. So you are giving your students a chance at the phonological awareness level. How many syllables do you hear? Submit, right? Then they also have these 2 colored chips. So they can, for each syllable, flip it to a different color. So submit, right? So opportunities, they can feel, they can touch this, they can flip these. So submit. So then when our students are at this level, then they can write. You could also have them, write the parts of the words in the box, in the Conan boxes. That would definitely be after you're sure that they, hear those syllables, then write those syllables. So they're breaking them into syllables. Then when you get into a word with a prefix and a suffix, the word, this one, preheating. So how many syllables? Preheating, right? Preheating. Using the counters, you can have preheating, right? So we make sure that they hear there's 3 syllables, then we can have them spell that. So also helps them orthographically map this word because they're seeing the parts of the words broken down. So that toolkit is a great place, especially for people that are not comfortable with phonemic awareness in the 3 through 5 space, because a lot of the 3 through 5 teachers have not learned about phonological awareness. So, and it's scripted as well. Again, bringing in that important component of that phonemic awareness, that phonological awareness in that toolkit. So comprehension, what is it? It's definitely, we assess a lot for comprehension, but we also are assessing decoding in a lot of cases where we're asking for comprehension to be assessed. A family I was working with last week, the student, the mom was telling me, that he's making 20s on comprehension checks. And when I looked at what he is supposed to be decoding for those, he cannot decode. So actually the teacher is not assessing his comprehension, they're assessing his decoding. He can't decode what they're asking him to comprehend. So we have to make sure that our students can decode the material that we expect them to comprehend. And if we give the students that same material orally and they can comprehend it, sometimes that's an accommodation that we need to provide. If it's a grade level text or it's something that we're reading in our, tier 1 instruction, and this student's off grade level, then we can provide that, an oral accommodation to them, because a lot of times when we do that, we see that they do comprehend it. They just can't read it. So making sure we distinguish that. So what is comprehension? It is the understanding and interpretation of what is read. It is a complex neurobiological process that allows readers to understand what they are reading. It's the whole point of reading, right? But without the solid foundations in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, it's incredibly difficult to achieve strong comprehension. So again, bringing it all together, and this right here speaks volumes, the simple view of reading, this theoretical model. So it takes decoding and language comprehension for reading comprehension. So if your student can decode, but they can't understand language, they're not going to have reading comprehension. If your student can't decode, but they have language comprehension, they're not going to have reading comprehension. So it takes decoding and language comprehension for reading comprehension. So just thinking about that. So again, Guided Phonics and Beyond addresses the comprehension, but they address it too with that explicit instruction in the decoding and with the vocabulary before the comprehension. So it all works together. And for a student to have comprehension, you have to have everything before that to make sure that comprehension is there. So want to thank you for joining us today, and please reach out to your educational sales consultants in your region if you did not receive the materials. If you registered by February 29th, you should have received them, but if not, please reach out. And we hope to see you at the next webinar on April 8th for What is All the Schwa About? Thank you again for attending, and please let us know if you have any questions. Have a great day.